The New Mexico desert burns crimson as the sun sinks low, its light bleeding across jagged canyons and endless sand. Jack Callahan, a lone drifter, reins in his weary horse, his silhouette carved sharp against the fiery sky. Dust clings to his weathered duster, and his eyes, shadowed beneath a battered hat, scan the horizon. Suddenly, a cry pierces the stillness as small figures stumble from a rocky canyon. Their voices raw with panic. "Mister, you gotta help us. He's gonna kill her." The words slam into Jack like a runaway stagecoach, stirring a long buried ache in his chest. Jack squints through the haze, his hand resting on the worn handle of his six-shooter. Before him stand Ellie, a scrappy 12-year-old with tangled brown hair and fierce green eyes, clutching her younger brother, Tommy, barely 8, his face smudged with dirt and tears. Their clothes are ragged, torn by thorns and days of running through the brutal desert. "Who's gonna kill who, kid?" Jack asks, his voice rough as gravel, betraying none of the storm brewing inside him. Ellie steps forward, her fists clenched, chin trembling but defiant. "Amos Kane," she says. "He's got our ma, Sarah, shot our pa dad over our land 2 weeks back. Now he's holding her at his ranch, says he'll make her his wife. She's fighting him, but he's hurting her bad, mister. Real bad." The wind howls through the canyon, kicking up swirls of dust that sting Jack's face. A distant coyote's wail echoes like the desert itself is mourning. Jack shifts in his saddle, his scarred hands tightening on the reins. At 35, he's seen too much of the West's cruelty: cattle drives, bar fights, and a past that haunts him like a shadow. 10 years ago, outlaws took his wife and daughter, leaving him with nothing but guilt and a gun. "Ain't my fight," he mutters, glancing at the vast, unforgiving expanse of sand stretching to the horizon. But Tommy's small voice cuts through, trembling yet resolute. "She's all we got left. Please, mister, you're the only one we found." His wide, hopeful eyes glint in the fading light, and Jack feels a pang of memory of his own little girl gone forever. Ellie kneels in the dirt, her fingers tracing a rough map with a snap twig. "Kane's ranch is outside Redstone, about 10 miles north," she says, her voice steady despite her fear. "Ma's locked up in his big house. We snuck close yesterday. Saw her through a window. Her face was bruised, but she was still fightin', refusing to sign our land over to him." She looks up, her gaze piercing Jack's. "We ain't leaving her to die." Jack studies the girl, her fire reminding him of his wife's stubborn spirit, a memory that cuts deeper than any blade. He wants to ride on, to outrun this trouble like he's outrun everything else. But the kid's desperation clings to him, heavier than the dust on his boots. Jack dismounts, his spurs jangling softly as his boots hit the ground. He kneels to Tommy's level, the boy's tear-streaked face tugging at something he thought was long dead inside him. "You got more grit than most men I've met," he says, his voice softer now, though still edged with caution. "But Kane's no small-time rustler. He's got men, guns, and half of Redstone scared stiff. Going after him's like walking into a rattler's nest." Ellie grabs his arm, her grip fierce for such a small girl. "Then you're our only shot. Mister, you got that look like you've faced worse than Kane and walked away." She nods at the revolver on his hip, its handle smoothed by years of hard use. Jack's jaw tightens. He spent a decade dodging fights like this, running from the ghosts of his failures. The last rays of sunlight vanish, plunging the canyon into a sea of shadows. A chill settles over the desert, the air thick with the scent of sagebrush and danger. Jack stands, dusting off his hat, his mind wrestling with the choice. He could ride away, leave these kids to their fate, but the thought of Sarah, beaten and trapped, gnaws at him. He thinks of his own family, of the chances he didn't take. "All right," he says finally, his voice steady but heavy, like a man signing his own warrant. "I'll take you to Red." The moon hangs low over the New Mexico desert, casting a silver glow across the dusty trail to Redstone. Jack Callahan rides steady, Ellie and Tommy clinging to his back, their small hands gripping his duster as the horse's hooves thud against the hard-packed earth. The air smells of sage and danger, and the distant lights of Redstone flicker like a promise or a trap. Jack's eyes narrow, scanning the shadows for movement. "Stay sharp, kids," He mutters, "This town's got eyes, and they all report to Kane." Ellie nods, her jaw set, while Tommy presses closer, his small frame trembling against the night's chill. They reach the outskirts of Redstone, a ramshackle town of weathered saloons, a lone church with a sagging steeple, and adobe houses huddled against the desert wind. Jack ties his horse behind a crumbling stable, motioning for the kids to stay low. "We need answers before we go knocking on Kane's door," he says, his voice a low growl. Ellie points toward the saloon, its windows glowing with lamplight and raucous laughter. "Folks talk loose in there," she whispers. "Heard Pa say it once." Jack gives her a nod, impressed by her quick thinking, but his gut twists. Saloons mean trouble, and trouble's got a way of finding him. Inside the rusty Spur Saloon, the air is thick with tobacco smoke and the tang of cheap whiskey. Rough men in dusty hats lean over card tables, their eyes flicking to Jack as he steps through the swinging doors, Ellie and Tommy trailing close. The barkeep, a weary man with a scarred cheek, sizes Jack up. "Ain't seen you round here, stranger," he says, polishing a glass. Jack slides a coin across the bar. "Looking for news on Amos Kane's place. Word is he's holding a woman there." The saloon falls quiet, glasses pausing mid-air. A burly man in a red vest snorts. From a corner table, "You got a death wish, friend? Kane owns this town. Sheriff, too." Jack's hand hovers near his revolver, but he keeps his tone even. "Just passing through. Wanna know what I'm walking into?" Ellie tugs Jack's sleeve, her voice a fierce whisper. "'Ma's in his big house, up the hill. I heard his men bragging 'bout it last week. Said she's locked in a room, bruised up but still cursing Kane's name." Jack's eyes darken, picturing Sarah's defiance. He knows that kind of fire his wife had it, too, before the outlaws snuffed it out. The barkeep leans closer, voice low. "Kane's got a dozen men guarding that ranch, armed to the teeth, and he's got a temper meaner than a cornered rattler. Woman's lucky she's still breathin'." Jack nods, his mind racing. He needs a plan, and fast. Outside, under the saloon's creaking sign, Jack kneels to talk to the kids. "You said something about a deed, Ellie. Where's it at?" Ellie's eyes light up, but her voice stays hushed. "Ma hid it near an old Comanche trail, 'bout a mile out of town. It's proof our land's ours, not Kane's. Pa died protecting it." Tommy pipes up, his voice shaky but proud. "Ma said it's buried by a twisted oak, marked with a rock like a hawk's head." Jack rubs his jaw, the stubble rough under. His fingers, a deed could turn the tide, but getting it means risking the open desert with Kane's men prowling. He looks at the kids, their faces lit by moonlight, and feels a weight settle on him. They're counting on him, and he's not sure he's worth their trust. Jack leads the kids to a small campfire on the edge of town, hidden behind a cluster of mesquite bushes. As they sit, the fire's glow dances across their faces. "You ever lose someone, mister?" Ellie asks, her voice soft but probing. Jack stares into the flames, the crackle filling the silence. "Yeah," he says finally. "Wife and daughter. Outlaws took 'em 10 years back. I wasn't fast enough to stop it." His voice cracks, and he looks away, the memory like a knife in his ribs. Tommy scoots closer, his small hand touching Jack's arm. "You're helping us now. That's something." Jack manages a faint smile, but his heart's heavy. He shows them how to keep watch, teaching Ellie to spot a rider's dust trail and Tommy to listen for hoof beats. "We move at dawn," he says. "Get that deed, then figure out how to get to your ma." But trouble doesn't wait for dawn. As the fire dies to embers, 3 of Kane's men hard-eyed riders in black hats spot the glow and creep toward the camp. Jack hears the snap of a twig and shoves the kids behind a boulder, his revolver drawn in a flash. "Stay down," he hisses. The first thug lunges, knife gleaming, but Jack's faster, slamming him to the ground with a fist. The second draws a pistol, but Jack fires first, the shot echoing through the night. The third bolts, disappearing into the dark, no doubt running to warn Kane. Jack curses under his breath, holstering his gun. The kids emerge, wide-eyed but unharmed. "You're good with that," Ellie says, awestruck. Jack shakes his head. "Good ain't enough. Kane knows we're comin' now." They slip back into the shadows. Moving toward the town's edge, Jack spots Kane's ranch in the distance, a looming fortress atop a hill, its windows glowing like predator eyes. Through one, he catches a glimpse of a woman, Sarah, her silhouette pacing behind bars, her head high despite the bruises on her face. The sight hits Jack like a punch. He's seen too many folks broken by men like Kane. But Sarah's still fighting. He turns to the kids, his voice firm. "We get that deed. Then we get her out. No turning back." Ellie nods, her eyes blazing with hope, while Tommy clutches her hand. The desert wind howls, carrying the promise of a reckoning as Jack leads them into the night, toward the Comanche Trail and the fight ahead. Moonlight pours over the New Mexico desert, bathing the rugged canyons and twisted oaks in a ghostly silver glow. The air is thick with the scent of dry sage and the faint tang of coming rain. Jack Callahan moves swiftly along the old Comanche Trail, his boots crunching softly on the sandy path. Ellie and Tommy follow close, their breaths quick and shallow, their small figures dwarfed by the vast, unforgiving landscape. Jack's eyes, sharp as a hawk's, scan the shadows for any sign of trouble. His revolver sits heavy on his hip, a familiar weight that grounds him. "Stay close, kids," he whispers, his voice barely rising above the desert's restless wind. "Kane's men are hunting us now, and they don't miss twice." Ellie grips Tommy's hand, her fierce green eyes glinting with determination, while Tommy clutches a small stick, his knuckles white, as if it could fend off the dangers lurking in the night. They reach a gnarled oak, its branches clawing at the star-pricked sky like skeletal fingers. At its base lies a rock, its jagged edges shaped like a hawk's head, half buried in the parched earth. "This is it," Ellie says, dropping to her knees and clawing at the dirt with calloused fingers. Tommy joins her, his small hands digging frantically, his face set with a stubborn hope that makes Jack's chest ache. The desert watches in silence, broken only by the distant wail of a coyote and the rustle of mesquite bushes swaying in the breeze. Jack stands guard, his hand hovering near his gun, every nerve on edge. The memory of the saloon fight lingers, the blood, the gunfire, the thug who escaped to warn Kane. Time's running out. After tense minutes, Ellie's fingers brush a rusted tin box. She pulls it free, her breath catching as she pries it open. Inside lies the deed, its faded ink a testament to their family's claim to the land. Ellie clutches it to her chest, her eyes shining with a mix of relief and fear. "This'll save Ma," she says, voice trembling but sure. Tommy looks up at Jack, his dirt-smudged face lit by moonlight. "You think it's enough, mister?" Jack kneels, his spurs jangling softly, and meets the boy's gaze. "It's a start, kid," he says, his voice rough but kind. "But Kane don't care about paper unless it's got his name on it." His words hang heavy, and he wonders if he's leading these kids to hope or to their graves before they can move. The ground trembles with the thunder of hoofbeats. Jack's head snaps up, his hand drawing his revolver in a flash. "Get down," he hisses, shoving Ellie and Tommy behind the oak. 6 of Kane's men charge from the darkness, their horses kicking up clouds of dust, their guns gleaming under the moon. "You're a dead man, Drifter," shouts the leader, a scar-faced brute with a voice like gravel. Jack doesn't flinch. "Been called worse," he says, his tone cold as steel. The first shot cracks the night, a bullet whizzing past Jack's ear. He dives behind a boulder, returning fire, his shots precise and deadly. One rider tumbles from his horse, then another, their bodies hitting the sand with dull thuds. Sparks fly as bullets ricochet off rocks, the desert erupting into chaos. Ellie, crouched behind the oak, spots a gunman circling to flank Jack. Her heart pounds, but she acts fast, pulling her slingshot from her pocket. She loads a sharp stone, aims, and fires. The stone smacks the man's forehead, dropping him like a sack of flour. Jack glances back, a flicker of pride cutting through his grim focus. "Hell of a shot, Ellie," he grunts, dodging another bullet. But the fight turns brutal. A bullet grazes Jack's left arm, tearing through his sleeve and drawing blood. He grits his teeth, pain searing through him, but he keeps firing, taking down a third man. Tommy screams as a stray shot shatters a branch above, splinters raining down. Jack throws himself over the boy, shielding him as bullets kick up dirt. Around them, stay low, he barks, his voice hoarse. With a final shot, he drops another gunman. But the last to flee into the dark, their horses vanishing into the night. Jack staggers to his feet, clutching his bleeding arm. Blood soaks his sleeve, dripping onto the sand, but he waves off Ellie's wide-eyed concern. Just a scratch, he mutters, though his face is pale, his breath uneven. He kneels beside the kids, checking them for injuries. Ellie's hands tremble as she clutches the deed, while Tommy clings to her, his eyes brimming with tears. "You all right?" Jack asks, his voice softer now, heavy with worry. Ellie nods, her jaw tight. "You're hurt bad, Jack. We gotta fix you up." She tears a strip from her shirt, wrapping it around his arm, her small hands steady despite the chaos. Tommy watches, his voice small but fierce. "You didn't let em get us. You're like a hero in Miss Stories." Jack's throat tightens, and he looks away, staring into the desert's endless shadows. The kid's faith in him feels like a weight he's not sure he can carry. "I ain't no hero," he says, his voice low, almost lost in the wind. "I was a deputy once, back in Texas. Had a wife, a little girl 'bout your age, Tommy. Outlaws came one night, burned our home. I fought, but I wasn't fast enough. Lost them both." His voice cracks, and he clenches his fist. The pain in his arm nothing compared to the ache in his chest. "Seeing you to fightin' for your ma's like the good Lord's given me a chance to make it right. I ain't failin' you." Ellie's eyes glisten, but she holds his gaze. "You're bleedin' for us, Jack. That's more'n most would do." Tommy reaches out, his small hand touching Jack's calloused fingers. "You're gonna save Ma, ain't you?" Jack manages a faint smile, but his heart's heavy with doubt. He's about to speak when Ellie gasps, picking up a brittle scrap of paper that slipped from the tin box. It's a Comanche map. It's faded, lines tracing a hidden vein of gold beneath their land, marked with ancient symbols. Jack's eyes narrow, his mind racing. "Cain ain't just after your land," he says, voice hard as flint. "He's chasing a Comanche legend gold buried deep in these hills. That's why he's so desperate to break your ma." The revelation lands like a thunderclap, tying Cain's greed to a fortune whispered about in old Comanche tales. Jack tucks the map into his coat, his resolve hardening like iron. "We got the deed, but it won't stop Cain. Not yet." He stands wincing as pain shoots through his arm, and looks toward Redstone, where storm clouds churn over the New Mexico desert, their dark edges lit by flashes of lightning that split the night. Jack Callahan leads Ellie and Tommy through the shadows, their figures small against the looming silhouette of Amos Cain's ranch atop the hill. The air crackles with tension, thick with the scent of rain and gunpowder. Jack's wounded arm throbs, blood seeping through Ellie's makeshift bandage, but his eyes burn with a quiet fire. He glances at the kids, their faces pale but resolute, the deed tucked safely in Ellie's pocket. "Stay low and stick to me," he whispers, his voice steady despite the pain. "We get your ma out, no matter what." Ellie nods, gripping Jack's knife, while Tommy clutches her hand, his small frame braced against the wind. They creep toward the ranch, its adobe walls and iron gates looming like a fortress. Lanterns cast eerie glows across the yard, where Cain's men patrol, their boots crunching on gravel. Jack counts 6 guards, rifles slung across their shoulders, their laughter harsh in the stormy air. He motions for the kids to hide behind a stack of barrels near the gate. "Wait for my signal," he says, his tone leaving no room for argument. Ellie's eyes flash with defiance, but she nods, pulling Tommy close. Jack slips into the shadows, moving like a ghost, his revolver drawn. The desert itself seems to hold its breath, the wind dropping to a low moan as he nears the first guard. With a swift move, Jack knocks the guard out cold, dragging him behind a shed. He takes down another with a silent chokehold, his movements precise despite the ache in his arm, but the third guard spots him, shouting a warning before Jack's fist sends him sprawling. The alarm spreads, and the yard erupts into chaos. Gunfire cracks through the night, bullets splintering wood, and, kicking up dust, Jack dives behind a water trough, returning fire, his shots dropping to more men. Now, he yells to the kids, who sprint toward the ranch house, dodging gunfire as Jack covers them. Ellie's slingshot snaps, a stone cracking a gunman's hand, making him drop his rifle. Tommy scrambles beside her, his eyes wide but fierce. They reach the house, its heavy oak door barred. Jack kicks it open, splinters flying, and they rush inside. The air is thick with the smell of polished wood and fear. Upstairs, in a dimly lit room, they find Sarah bruised, her dress torn, but her eyes blazing with defiance. She's tied to a chair, her wrists raw from struggling. "Ma!" Ellie cries, rushing to her. Sarah's face softens, tears welling as she sees her children. "Oh, my babies," she whispers, voice breaking. Jack cuts her ropes with his knife, his hands steady despite the blood soaking his sleeve. "We ain't got long," he says, helping her stand. Sarah's legs wobble, but her gaze locks on Jack. "You're the one they found," she says, gratitude mixing with pain. Before they can move, Amos Kane's voice booms from the doorway. "Leavin' so soon?" He steps into the light, a hulking figure in a black coat, his cold eyes glinting like a snake's. 4 of his men flank him, guns trained on Jack and the family. Kane's lips curl into a sneer. "You got the deed, Drifter, but you ain't walking out of here." Jack steps forward, shielding Sarah and the kids, his revolver steady. "Let em go, Kane. This ends with me." Kane laughs, a cruel sound that echoes off the walls. "You think I'm just after land? That gold vein's mine, and I'll burn this town to keep it." He pulls a vial from his pocket, its liquid glinting ominously. "Poison for Redstone's water. Sign the deed, Sarah, or the town drinks death." Sarah's eyes blaze, but her voice is ice. "I'll die first." Jack's heart pounds, memories of his lost family flashing through his mind. He can't fail again. In a desperate move, he lowers his gun, letting it clatter to the floor. "Take me," he says, voice calm but heavy. "Let them walk." Kane's grin widens, and he swings a fist, knocking Jack to his knees. Blows rain down, Jack's blood staining the floor, but he doesn't fight back. His eyes fixed on Sarah and the kids, urging them to run. Sarah hesitates, her face torn with anguish, but Ellie pulls her toward the door, Tommy clutching the deed. Outside, the storm breaks, rain lashing the desert. Ellie, defying Jack's orders, rallies the townsfolk, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Kane's gonna poison Redstone. Help us." The townsfolk, stirred by her courage and tired of Kane's tyranny, grab rifles and pitchforks. Storming the ranch, inside, Sarah breaks free from her shock, grabbing a hidden knife from her boot. As Kane raises his gun to finish Jack, she lunges, stabbing his hand. Kane roars, dropping the vial, which shatters on the floor. Jack, battered but alive, tackles Kane, pinning him as the townsfolk burst in, overpowering Kane's remaining men. Sarah falls to her knees, pulling Ellie and Tommy into a fierce embrace, tears mixing with the rain on her bruised face. Jack slumps against the wall, bloodied and barely conscious, but a faint smile crosses his lips as he watches the family reunite. The deed is safe, Kane is beaten, and Redstone is free. Lightning flashes, illuminating the ranch, now quiet except for the sound of rain and the family's soft sobs. Jack's eyes meet Sarah's, and for a moment, he feels a peace he hasn't known in years. The desert outside rumbles, its storm washing away the blood and fear as the fight for justice comes to a close. The New Mexico desert awakens under a golden dawn, its light spilling across the rain-cleansed earth, where puddles gleam like scattered stars. The air carries the fresh scent of wet sage and the faint promise of renewal. As Redstone stirs in, the quiet aftermath of Amos Kane's defeat, beneath a weathered desert oak, its branches glistening with morning dew, Sarah kneels beside a simple wooden cross, her fingers tracing the carved name, Jack Callahan. A single wildflower, its petals bright against the dark soil, rests on his grave, a silent offering for the man who gave everything to save her family. Ellie and Tommy stand close, their faces etched with a grief too heavy for their young hearts, yet softened by the warmth of being together again. The desert hums softly, its breeze a gentle hymn for a drifter who found redemption in its dust. Sarah's hands tremble as she places another wildflower beside the first, her bruised face catching the dawn's glow. "He didn't owe us a thing," she says, her voice thick with gratitude and sorrow. A stranger, carrying his own pain. But he fought for us like we were his own. Her eyes, still shadowed by Cain's cruelty, glisten as she looks at her children. Ellie, 12 and fierce, clutches the deed, its faded ink a hard-won promise of their future. Jack said justice ain't free, she murmurs, her voice steady despite the tears streaking her dust-smudged cheeks. He paid for it so we could keep our home. Tommy, barely 8, holds a carved wooden arrowhead, its edges smoothed by Jack's careful hands. He showed me how to make this, he says, his small voice breaking. Said it's like the Comanche did, to remember who they were. Sarah pulls them into her arms, her embrace fierce and protective, as if she could shield them from every hurt the world might bring. Days have passed since the storm-swept fight at Cain's ranch. Redstone is healing, its people no longer cowering under a tyrant's shadow. The townsfolk, stirred by Ellie's courage and Jack's sacrifice, have buried Cain's greed and rebuilt their spirit. In the town square, children chase each other, their laughter mingling with the creak of a repaired saloon sign. The church bell tolls, a clear note of hope, as families gather to share stories of the night they took their town back. Sarah walks her land, its fields stretching toward the horizon, the deed ensuring it will stay hers. But her thoughts linger on Jack the stranger with haunted eyes who carried his own ghosts, yet chose to carry their fight. She sees his faint smile in her mind, bloodied and broken against the ranch wall, finding peace in knowing her family was safe. A memory flickers, sharp and vivid, under a starlit sky days before the fight. Jack sits by a campfire, his knife carving the arrowhead for Tommy, its wood catching the fire's glow. Comanche folks walked these trails long before us, he says, his voice low, almost reverent. They hid their secrets in the land gold, stories, their fight to stay free. Men like Cain try to take it, but the desert don't bend easy. He hands the arrowhead to Tommy, his scarred fingers lingering on the boy's small hand. Keep this, it's a piece of their strength. Those words echo now, tying the family's fight to the Comanche, who, in the 1880s, faced their own battles against those who sought to strip their lands and legacy. Their trails, once alive with trade and survival, held treasures like the gold. Vain Cain chased a secret the desert guarded with its silence. Ellie's voice, older now, carries the story forward, steady and clear as she narrates. Jack wasn't just a drifter. He was a man who'd lost everything, but he gave us everything he had left. The Comanche knew that kind of fight, hiding their hope in these hills, just like Ma hid our deed. She pauses, her gaze sweeping the desert, where the oak stands tall over Jack's grave, its roots deep in the earth. Sarah plants one last wildflower, its delicate petals a burst of life against the soil. A symbol of hope enduring through loss, the family rises, hand in hand, their silhouettes strong against the rising sun. They walk toward their land, ready to rebuild, carrying Jack's sacrifice in their hearts like a beacon. The desert stretches wide, its golden light a quiet vow of peace. Ellie's voice rings out one final time, warm with conviction. Jack Callahan